He stood quietly at gate 14, boarding pass in hand, just another traveler in a sea of faces. But something about him, his skin color, maybe his calm confidence, made the gate agent pause. Moments later, 2 security officers approached, asking him to step aside. No explanation. Just suspicion. Passengers whispered. Phones recorded. And as he was pulled into questioning, the entire flight was delayed. What no one knew was that this man wasn't just any passenger. He was the reason their planes could legally fly at all. And today, their judgment would cost them everything. What happens when the man you discriminate against holds the power to shut you down?
If you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss a moment that matters.
Darius Cole had spent the past 20 years ensuring that the skies over America remained safe. As a senior FAA inspector, he'd walked through countless hangars, audited major airlines, and grounded planes that didn't meet the mark. He was the man whose signature could clear or collapse an airline's operations. But today, dressed casually in jeans, a pullover, and a Yankees cap, Darius wasn't working. He was flying home to D.C. after a surprise inspection in Phoenix. No badge, no clipboard, just a weary man waiting to board his flight. The airport buzzed with weekend chaos, families juggling strollers, businessmen glued to laptops, flight announcements echoing overhead. Darius found a quiet corner near gate 14 and sipped his coffee, scanning through emails on his phone. That's when he noticed the glances. First the gate agent, then a flight attendant whispering to a TSA officer. Something in their eyes, not concern, but caution. Like they were trying to solve a problem without knowing exactly what the problem was. He brushed it off. He was used to people being surprised when someone like him showed up in positions of power. But this wasn't surprise, it was profiling. Plain and raw. Minutes before boarding, 2 airport security officers approached. One stood in front of him, the other slightly behind. "Sir, can we speak with you for a moment?" No explanation. No courtesy. Just an assumption. Passengers nearby began to notice. Some pulled out phones. Others looked away, pretending not to see. Darius exhaled slowly, stood up, and followed them. He had the credentials to stop the flight. But for now, he said nothing. Because this story wasn't over yet. They led Darius to a small side room near the gate, the kind used for extra screening. No windows. Just cold walls and colder suspicion. One officer stood stiffly with arms crossed. The other began asking questions. "Where are you traveling from? What's your purpose for visiting Phoenix?" Darius responded calmly. "Business trip. Heading home." "Business with whom?" He paused, eyeing them both. "FAA. They raised eyebrows. One scribbled notes while the other asked again, this time slower, as if Darius hadn't understood. "You're saying you work for the FAA?" "Yes. I'm a senior flight inspector." But there was disbelief in their eyes. They weren't buying it. "Can you prove it?" His FAA ID was in his carry-on, which they hadn't let him take into the room. Darius offered to retrieve it. They refused. "Protocol," they said. He offered to call his direct supervisor. Again, refused. Meanwhile, Flight 218 to Washington, D.C. had begun boarding. Gate agents waited. But one looked back nervously toward the holding room. The officers whispered to each other, then one stepped out, returning a few minutes later with a printed photo. "Is this you?" he asked. Darius glanced at it. A grainy security image. His face, circled in red. Taken minutes earlier when he walked through the terminal. He kept his composure. "Why am I being questioned?" The officer hesitated. "A crew member flagged you. Said you were lingering by the cockpit door earlier." "That's because I was inspecting the plane earlier today," Darius said evenly. "Unofficially. I walked the exterior before boarding. That's my job." Still, doubt clung to their faces like fog. Back at the gate, confusion was mounting. The pilot stood outside the jet bridge, checking his watch. Boarding was nearly complete, except for one missing passenger. Him. That's when Darius stood, voice firm now. You're delaying a federal inspector. I suggest you confirm my identity quickly, before this becomes a federal issue. They exchanged glances. The mood shifted. A call was finally made. 10 minutes later, a supervisor burst in, eyes wide. Sir, I'm so sorry. We didn't know. Darius simply nodded. I'm aware you didn't. He walked out without another word. Past the crew. Past the passengers. Straight toward the gate, where the plane still waited. He could have ended the flight right there. But he had something bigger in mind. Darius walked up to the gate agent, calm but commanding. The entire flight crew turned as they saw him return. Whispers sparked through the waiting passengers, some recognizing him, others sensing something was wrong. He pulled out his ID and badge. Darius Cole, FAA Senior Inspector. The agent's face drained of color. The same one who flagged him earlier now looked like she'd seen a ghost. You delayed a federal inspector, he said, loud enough for nearby passengers and crew to hear. Detained me without cause. Searched me without a warrant. And now, your aircraft is grounded. The co-pilot stammered. "Yes, sir. We didn't know." Darius stepped past him, down the jet bridge, and turned at the door. "I was assigned to perform a surprise audit today," he announced. "And congratulations, your entire crew just failed." Gasps spread through the passengers behind him. "I'll be filing a full report. Expect a grounding notice within 24 hours. The captain tried to intervene. "Wait, surely we can talk." But Darius was done talking. He looked back once more. The same people who questioned him, doubted him, profiled him, were now frozen in place, powerless. And then he turned away. In that moment, the story flipped, not just for Darius, but for everyone watching. The man they assumed was a threat turned out to be the one holding all the power. And he didn't have to raise his voice to do it. The airline issued a rushed apology. The staff involved were suspended pending investigation. But the damage was already done. Social media exploded, passengers shared video clips, and millions watched the story unfold online. As for Darius, he didn't celebrate. He sat in his office, filing the final report. Not with anger, but with clarity. He'd seen it happen to others, people like him, profiled, dismissed, humiliated. But this time, he had the badge. This time, he had the power to change something. He didn't want revenge. He wanted accountability. The FAA implemented a new protocol for anti-bias training across all airlines. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. And Darius, he became a symbol, not just of justice, but of what happens when assumptions meet authority. Because you never know who you're profiling. You never know whose flight you're delaying. And sometimes, the person you try to hold back is the one who controls whether your flight ever takes off again.